Hey everybody, Michael here from Southern Indiana Sawmill, and these are 5 things that I wish everybody knew before starting a sawmill operation. Well, let's get straight to it, shall we? The first thing that I would mention about getting a sawmill and starting to run a sawmill operation is to understand that it is physically hard labor. This is something that you don't often think about until after the fact. Oddly enough, believe it or not folks, logs can be very, very heavy. And one of the things that you rarely see in the promo videos and all of that kind of advertising for selling sawmills is the fact that you don't normally see a tractor or a skid steer or a forklift moving these logs around. And so you need something to do that, because if you don't, it's going to be extremely hard and you will wear out your body extremely fast. And so when I very first started going out and looking for a sawmill, I interviewed a couple people that were already running successful sawmill businesses. And one of the guys I interviewed asked me what I wanted to do with it, and I told him, well, I kind of want to do portable service and stuff like that. And one of the things he said is, you must have hydraulics on your sawmill. Now, believe it or not, at that time I had not even thought about something like that. I was thinking about the cutting, not the moving it around. And so from the logs to the lumber to everything else, you need to make sure that your setup is done in such a way that you can minimize physical labor as much as possible. Now, I've learned this the hard way from personal experience. I've injured myself carrying very heavy stuff, and it just hasn't been a good time. And so even though it is a lot more cost to have hydraulics on a sawmill, even though you think, well, maybe I can't afford that kind of a sawmill, let me tell you something. It is far better to have a body that is physically able when you're older than to be completely torn up by the time you're middle-aged. And so one of the things that you do need to consider is the fact that sawmill work is physically hard labor. It is hard work, which is why many, many people, after buying a sawmill, get rid of one relatively soon after buying it. And so if you want to set yourself up for success, you need to minimize your physical labor and set things up as smart as possible. Number 2, you're going to want to consider what it's going to cost for you to do maintenance and buy the necessary tools to get started in your sawmill operation. Now, I can tell you that, of course, this is going to depend greatly on the scale of which you do things. Smaller businesses will cost a little less. Larger is going to cost significantly more. But I can tell you this, that I've been doing this, in a sense, part-time most of the time I've been doing this business. And one year I spent over $6,000 in maintenance costs, repair, and tools. And so you may want to consider things like, what's it going to cost you to sharpen your blades? Generally speaking, you should not spend more than $7 or $8 per blade to sharpen a blade, by the way. You're going to want to consider if you're going to need other smaller tools besides tractors, forklifts, or skid steers. A log moving arch, PV cant hooks, perhaps a metal detector, as many of you have reminded me over the years. You're going to have to consider all of these different tools that you're going to need. And by the way, if you are looking for ideas of what you would need to bring, perhaps on a portable sawmill job or in a startup, at the end of this video there's going to be a link for a video on basically how to set up a sawmill operation, so you can go ahead and watch that too. There is a lot of cost involved in getting started, and there does not seem to be a lot of used tools out there, at least for the smaller tools. So I recommend that you look around. Sometimes you can just get them online. Of course, Wood Miser is also an option. I don't get paid by them, by the way. I just think they carry great tools. But also sometimes in your local small engine repair shops that sell these sorts of things. Sometimes places that sell chainsaws will have cant hooks and stuff like that that you can purchase. Those smaller tools like that can be major lifesavers on the job, but you need to consider the cost of that before you get started. I would say if you have a brand new mill, the first year your maintenance is going to be relatively low on the machine, but you need to set aside at least a couple $1,000s for just the basics between oil changes, new blades, and that's if you're a smaller operation. Obviously, if you're looking at something larger, it's going to be quite significantly more than that. Number 3. This third one, I really wish everybody knew before they ever bought a sawmill and considered what it was going to take to build relationships and advertise your business. Now, if you're just a person that's doing it for your own individual good, then you don't really have to worry about this so much. But your friends will know that you have a sawmill, and you may be requested to do some work just because you have one. But if you're looking to make yourself known, there's only one way to do that, and that is to advertise and to build relationships with your local community. Now, I'm fortunate because I am located in a place in southern Indiana where Indianapolis is very reachable and Louisville, Kentucky is very reachable from where I'm at. And so I can draw a fairly large circle and get to different places. And I set up a website, and obviously I started doing some social media things like YouTube and whatnot. And I got a little bit of business out of all of those different areas. But one of the things that you can never underestimate is building relationships. That is the personal, local relationships that keep you stable where you're at now. And it does cost, obviously, a little bit of money to start advertising. Actually, depending how you want to grow, it may cost a whole lot to advertise. Some businesses have been known to spend, like for example in the movie industry, they will spend as much on advertising as they do on the actual movie to get people to come in and see it. Now in the sawmill business, it is a little different because not everyone needs their logs sawn. Just about everybody will watch a movie from time to time. But this is something really to consider. It's going to take time to do that. You can usually say 6 months to a year probably to build solid relationships where people know you're there and they trust you and will come to depend on you. And that is something that at the beginning, I'm not sure that I did super well, honestly. I didn't really get out there and let myself known. Part of that is I just did not have the time to keep sawing. And so that's just something to consider when you're getting into it. But it is very, very important. If they don't know you're there, you won't get any business. Number 4. This next point may be a little controversial for some of you depending on how you handle your finances. You may have noticed that the last couple of points I've talked some about considering the cost and some of the financial obligations that are required to get a business up and running. Well, this one is a little different from that. See, you got to consider that if you're going to put debt into the business, whether it's good debt or bad debt. Now, some people don't believe in debt at all, which by far, I agree, is the very best approach. If you can afford to get a new sawmill that is now running, the LT40 is, I don't know, it's around $40,000 now to get it souped up and get it right. I think it's more than that actually. Or even a decent used one in today's market is going to run you $25,000 to $30,000, unless you're getting something that is really, really old that needs lots of repair. And not everyone just has that kind of cash sitting around, but there's a dream, there's an ambition, you want to do this. Just like a car loan or anything else, you look at it and you say, hey, I can afford that every month, so, let's dive in. Well, consider the difference then between good debt and bad debt. This is something I really wish I would have thought through a little bit more when I got started in the business. And so what is the difference between these? Well, good debt is debt that you put into the business, but somebody else pays for it. So for example, you might have a sawmill and you're paying on that, but people are going to bring you logs, you're going to saw for them, you're going to charge them, and it's really their money that is going to end up paying for that sawmill in the long run. You're not the one making those payments. Bad debt would be like putting gas or groceries on a credit card. It goes on there, it acquires interest. Not only do you have to pay for the groceries, but you have to pay for the interest on the groceries. And so if you get this up and running and you're actually getting business, yeah, you're doing the physical labor and everything, but somebody else is paying for that machine. It's not going to be you. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying there. Good debt versus bad debt. It makes all the difference in the world between a successful operation and an unsuccessful operation. You want to know why all of these billionaires never pay taxes? Because they are $1 billion in debt. Everything they have is financed and everyone else is paying for it. It's a quick way to get rich. It's a dangerous way to live sometimes, but if you know how to handle your finances well in that way, you're going to be just fine. In my opinion, it's okay to take out some debt as long as it's justified and pays for itself. So what are your thoughts on that last point? Good debt, bad debt? Go ahead and put them in the comment section below. Point number 5. All right guys, I got a lot more points that I could give you, but for the sake of the length of this video, I'm restricting it to 5. And for me, this 5th one is probably one of the most important ones that there is. You need to set clear goals for yourself, and you need to stick to them. You need to persevere through your original goal. One of the things behind this is you have to understand what exactly it is you're trying to do. If you're setting up a hobby mill, You know, you're going to get yourself a little LT15 or a smaller mill and you just want to saw a couple logs a year, then that's fine. You've already considered the cost probably. It's probably easily affordable for you and it's not a problem. But if you're looking to upscale and get bigger, start doing work for other people and grow the operation, you need to have very clear and distinct goals with timelines established. Guys, listen, this is not something that I did off the bat. It's not something that I learned right away. I had a big, huge vision and a big, huge dream, and I thought, I'm going to name my business this huge name, Southern Indiana Sawmill. And guess what? It's just me. It's just me. It sounds huge, but it's just me. And when I started it, I thought, I'm going to get the mill, and I don't know. We'll see. In a year, we'll see where we're at with it. Well, the business did not come my way right away. I didn't set clear and distinct goals. You really need to be a good planner in this sense. And men, and I will say it's mostly men that watch my channel, we're often very ambitious, but we're often not very good at administration. And so if you're not an administrative individual, which is not my primary gift, I don't think, then you need to have someone that can set those goals for you and hold you accountable for it. So for example, you get a mill and you say at 6 months, I want to have developed X amount of relationships or advertised in X amount of places, and I want to have made this amount of dollars. Maybe it's this amount of dollars, but maybe you want to make that much. Then you have to consider what it's going to take to accomplish that goal and stick to it. Now, most people, when they get into this, it is a part-time business, which is what it had been for me for most of my life. As many of you know, right now I'm driving semi-trucks because I have not had the business on the sawmill that I would have liked to have had. And so, sacrificing for my family, I said, I'm going to get a job that allows me to keep all of this stuff and keep the business going. But if you say, at 6 months, I want to have made $10,000 in the sawmill business, then you have to say, based on what I'm currently charging for my prices, then this is what I have to do. This is how many jobs I need. And if you're not meeting those markers, then you have to adjust. And you need to change your plan a little bit. As with anything in life, probably the most important thing for success is what I call delighting in the monotony. You have to get used to doing the same thing over and over and over and becoming excellent at it. And once you have become excellent at what you're doing, and once you have suffered through the monotony of gaining those skills, then you will be properly equipped to master any situation in life, in the sawmill business. But it begins with setting goals, managing expectations, and sticking to them, being accountable. And so those are some things to consider. Well, what did you all think of these 5 points? Are they good points? Are they bad points? I know there's a lot more that could be added. The ones that you're thinking of, why don't you put those in the comment section below? Please go ahead, guys, and subscribe to this channel and like it and share it. That is how I get views, that is how I get noticed, and that is what gives me motivation to continue making all of this content for you. Also, please go ahead and check out the videos that are popping up on the side of the screen here. They're relevant to the information that you just heard here today. Well, as always, God bless you all and take care of yourselves in this crazy world.